Welcome, dear listeners, to the Speak and Flow podcast, where we dive into unique strategies to help you and your team achieve maximum potential and flow, even when the stakes are high, when the pressure is high. Today, I have the complete honor of introducing a highly accomplished leader. Her name is Jaime Lee. She is a trustee of USC. She's an independent board of directors for James Campbell and CEO of Jameson Realty. Hi, Jamie. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I am looking forward to really just diving into your incredible journey. And before we get into that, can you share with the audience what is happening in the real estate world, what you're excited about?
Sure. Well, we're one of the leading housing developers here in Los Angeles. We've brought over 6,500 units to market in the last decade, still under construction on a couple thousand, with a few more in the pipeline. And the area that we're really focused right now is office to multifamily conversion. So converting underutilized office buildings, which everyone hears there's so much of because of the pandemic, and turning them into apartments. And so we're doing that on several projects spanning downtown to Koreatown to the West Side.
Wow, that is so fascinating, exciting. And you have had incredible success, and you speak on hundreds of keynotes, panels. Can you share with us what is your secret sauce to preparing for some of these keynotes?
Oh, let's see. Well, I feel like I need to start off by saying I hated public speaking when I was younger. I never did it. I was terrified to even raise my hand in class, and that carried from when I was very young all the way through my law school days. I feel like I grew up in a culture where my parents were immigrants and I was first generation born, and it was all about assimilation and fitting in and not being noticed. So it was this mantra of keep your head down, stay quiet, do your work, do well on tests and exams, but don't share your opinion, don't ruffle feathers, don't rock the boat.
Mhm.
And that lack of practice in speaking really carried through and just grew into it was terrifying for me into my 20s, so that I would always do the bare minimum. Every now and then we'd have a mandatory speech class, and that would be a traumatic experience. In law school, we all had to do a moot court, it was an oral argument, and to be considered to join that team. And I remember going in and being like, please don't even consider me. I'm just doing this because it's required. And so I never ever thought that I would be in this position where I do so much public speaking now. I almost feel like it's my profession. And the way I really started out was from volunteering. And so after I graduated from law school, I went back and started volunteering for the Alumni Association at USC. And as I joined different committees, there would be different speaking opportunities, which I would always decline. And one year I was scholarship
I have a
chair.
question. I have a
Yeah.
question. So can you share with us, like, what were the feelings? What were like inside your body that you would feel and the thoughts that would go through your head for a
It would
moment when
it
people
would
would
be
ask
like if
you?
you wound a rubber band
Oh,
really,
interesting.
really, really tightly. It was just like a clenched shaking, I guess I would say.
Uh-huh.
My neck would get really, really hot, my hands would be shaking, and it's almost like your mind going blank.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite of flow, which in order to flow, you have to be relaxed, you have to be clear on your message, you have to know what it is that you're talking about.
Hmm.
And in all of those instances, it was just this mind numbing. I remember telling my friend, we would have a really scary law school professor who would call on people. And this was in a civil procedure class, which was technical, and you had to stretch your mind to make arguments. And when
Hmm.
you're in that terrified sort of fight or flight state,
Yeah.
I remember telling my friend, like, I can't even say the alphabet if she
Yeah.
called. Like, that's just how much, and it's just my friends and classmates around me, but there's something about this sense that people are looking at you and they're expecting you to say something. And so those
Right.
are the moments, what you have to fight through this process of, first of all, being able to stand up in front of people and just say the ABCs,
Hmm.
then moving to something that you're speaking very passionately about, which is
Right.
what it was when I was scholarship chair. It was raising money for very, very deserving kids who otherwise may not have been able to have a full experience at USC or to afford to even attend.
Right.
So when
At
there
that
was,
point, you were, like, afraid, but you, like, found like, something was really, something you were passionate about, something that you
yes.
knew was deserving, and you
So with
need.
mission and with
Mhm.
these stories, it
Yeah.
was like, okay, I have to get up there and I have to do it. I remember the first time I did, my neck was all hot. I was jumping up and down. I was breathing in a bag
Oh.
behind the stage. And I remember a couple other board members were just like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I really, really hate public speaking. I kept looking at the exit sign. I was thinking I just make a run for it. And my remarks were on the podium. So I said, if I'm just gone and they can't find me, then I'm sure someone else will just come up and read what I
Mhm.
had written. And those were really the thoughts that would go through my mind before I would speak. And the
Mhm.
first time you get through it, I'm reading off the page. I'd memorized it forward and backwards,
Mhm.
over prepare, over prepare. That was
Mhm.
really what carried me through, was this sense of at least I could have a shred of confidence because I
Mhm.
knew what I was talking about. I cared about it. And then I'd
Mhm.
memorized it backwards and forwards. I'm still
Mhm.
not a great off the cuff speech giver at all.
Mhm.
But for me, it was the safety within preparedness helped me get up there. And
Right.
what you find is as you do the reps, it gets easier and easier. And
Yeah.
the more I did, I mean, it's utterly terrifying for the first dozen or so times that you do
Right.
it.
Right.
But as I got more practice, as I got involved with different organizations, it just
Yeah.
got better and better. And so it's that root of preparedness, but then also pushing yourself to have these
Right.
experiences and realizing it doesn't get easier until you do it. But every time you do it, it gets easier.
Yeah, like you said, the root of preparedness, and then pushing yourself, continuing to do it. And then also, like, if you can have the passion around it, if you can find the why behind it.
Yes.
And because that is going to be your fuel to stretch yourself, to put yourself out there, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yes,
But if you can, yeah, lock into the why.
definitely.
And then so now, and then you did a commencement speech at
Yes.
USC in
That's
front of
right.
12,000 people.
I know that was definitely the biggest audience that I've ever spoken in front of. And it's so funny. That was probably the least nervous I've ever been,
Mhm.
which was incredible to me. And people said, "Oh, is that just because it was a faceless blur?" And I was like, "No, I could see people like taking a sip of water or clapping their hands or something." I was zeroing in on
Wow.
individual people, but again, it was that preparedness.
Yeah.
I had remarks that I cared about, and I had a lot of conviction. And
Yeah.
then I remember what it was like to be a student graduating, and it's sometimes it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. And so it was
Mhm.
just conveying this feeling of enthusiasm and optimism and pride for what they had accomplished. That was the feeling that I wanted them to leave with,
Uh-huh.
and the sense that the sky's the limit. So my remarks were all about setting huge audacious goals, because if all of us look back 10 years at who we were 10 years ago, no one would ever have predicted or imagined we could be where we are today. And we should carry that same level of awe and wonder and audaciousness into what we do in the future, because we tend to underestimate what we can do in the future, even though we've already shown ourselves and
Mhm.
accomplished so much with what we've just experienced in our lives.
What an experience for you too, to be able to
Yeah.
go up there, feel so comfortable after that journey of, like you said, you would have never forecasted in whatever how many years it was that you would be speaking in front of 12,000 people about this
Yes.
topic,
That's
about stretching ourselves and dreaming big. What a journey. That must have been really fun and thrilling for you too.
yeah, it was great. I was filled with a lot of pride, and I'm very, very involved at USC, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
very, very meaningful to me.
Oh man. And then the audience was there. They were all supportive and inspired. I love what you said about what do I want them to feel and how do I want them to feel and lead with that.
Yes. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, most people don't remember who spoke at their commencements, and I'm sure they
Uh,
don't remember my name, but I actually heard from someone this week who said, "Oh, yes, I've heard your name before because someone sent me your commencement dress." And they recognized me from it. And they said, "Oh, yeah, your message was so," they remembered that it was a message. So if you just even Googled, that commencement speech, it would come up. But people remembered the message of what I encouraged
mhm,
them to do. And
mhm.
so that's always great.
Awesome. And what is it like to be in front of an audience that really is not as welcoming, maybe judgmental, board meetings with different stakeholders?
Yes, I've
How do you
definitely
feel
been
about this?
in very contentious public meetings with, hundreds of people giving public comment, whether it was against, this is when I was president of the Harbor Commission at the Port
Mhm.
of Los Angeles. A lot of people remember in that time coming out of the pandemic, the cargo backlog that we had with all of the container ships
Yep.
sitting out at anchor. So
Yeah.
we had a couple of big hearings, and it's about reading the room and being adaptable and as flexible as possible. I feel like
Mhm.
these days we've just gone away from nuance and
Mhm.
this concept that things are not black and white, but
Mhm.
rather there are so many different stakeholders for any given issue. There are so many different opinions and competing
Mhm.
interests.
Mhm.
And the more nimble you can be in taking in information and then synthesizing it and reacting to it in a way that is both empathetic and understanding, but also holding firm to what your core, goal is in that context or in the negotiation is really important. There are sometimes I walk into a room and I think it's going to be this way, like this group is
Mhm.
going to go in this direction, or this is how the talk is going to be. And the first person who speaks, starts off with so much negativity and so
Mhm.
much pessimism that it's
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, okay, now I have to pivot on how
Mhm.
I'm going to present my opening remarks because I need to synthesize and adapt to what this person has said and weave it in so that I'm not acting like I'm either callous or blind to
Mhm.
what their needs are. And I think negotiation is such a great forum for that because you learn to
Mhm.
really think on your feet.
Mhm.
And again, it'll always come back to prepare, prepare, prepare. When I was first starting off in my industry, I was negotiating on behalf of different clients for a real estate space.
Right.
And I would go into so I'd be terrified. And so I need, it's like a mini speech almost when even if it's just with one other person across the table, but you have to
Yeah.
know all of your numbers. You
Yeah.
have to know all of your clients' goals and wishes and dreams. You have to know what's the rock bottom. Like they're not going to go past this number. They're not going to go above this number. And then what are all the pieces at play? What are all the different, levers that I can move up and down to just get to the baseline result that I need? And I would go in and be really nervous. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I would in advance say, here are all those parameters. But then I would say, this is
Mhm.
my opening ask or offer. And then depending on what they say, if they say this, then I can say that. And if they say that, then I can say, and that was the level of preparedness that I went into just on a micro detail.
Did
And
you
then,
map it out
oh
almost?
yeah, you could, it's like, they might say, it's like a decision tree.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so you can say if they say yes to this or if they say no to that,
Yeah.
or you might hear from them like this one area we cannot give, it has to be this number. So then we have to use all of these other levers to toggle up and down to get to where we need to be. And so
Yeah.
I'd be astounded. Sometimes you go in with a really good counterparty to your negotiation and be like, oh, this is a tough customer. Now I'm really on my feet and I'm going back to everything that I prepared in
Mhm.
that negotiation. Sometimes I would walk into the room, I'm like, this guy doesn't even know how big the space is
Uh-huh.
or what the starting like asking rate is for something. And that was the clear delineation of how you can be successful in these things, is that level of preparedness. And
Wow.
people surprise you all the time, so
Wow. That's amazing. Right, right. Yeah, no, you do. And then so in the moment, have you been in a moment where you're just caught off guard? Like, what do you do? So you're prepared. You have all of these different avenues that you could take them down, and so how do you know what if like it goes completely sideways? What do you do?
if it goes completely sideways, you have to backtrack to a human element.
Mm,
I will say that there are things that used to just surprise the hell out of me and knock you off your feet.
yeah.
And I just, they're wide eyed, like, oh,
Okay.
didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
These days, I think I've seen most of the tricks in the book.
So you're
And
uh-huh.
so I'm a little bit more prepared for that.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what goes to it. You can sit in your room and prepare as much as you want. But until you get out there and you have a
Right.
lot of reps sitting
Right.
across the table from someone,
Right.
sitting, even if it's with a friend, this doesn't even have to be a business negotiation. Sometimes you meet up with a friend for lunch and you think like, oh, this will be so fun. We haven't seen each other in a while. We want to catch up. And they'll sit down and just be like, everything is terrible. This is what happened wrong. And my whole life is falling apart. And it's like, oh, this conversation is going in a completely different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And what you have to really do is say, I'm adaptable. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have a fun ladies' lunch. And instead, this is
Mm-hmm.
going to turn into a little bit more of a therapy session. And that's okay because this is my friend, but you have to shift gears. You can't respond to that with being like, oh, well, everything's great. You know, I got a massage, I worked out today, like everything. You can't respond in that way. You
We
have to
can't.
say, oh, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I didn't realize you were going
Right.
through something so difficult. And how can I help you?
Yeah, yeah.
So
So if someone is resistant or contentious, you go there for a moment
yes, you have to take it in,
take
but
it
you also
in.
have to hold firm. Like if it is a negotiation, if it is a public comment complaining session, it's like, I hear you. We understand your frustration. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that with us. But that
yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean cave and give up on what your negotiation piece is or what your purpose is in being in that
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage people really to think deeply about what's your message. What are
Mm-hmm.
you trying to either convey or earn or get or help?
Mm-hmm.
And to always have that be the compass that guides you in your communications. But you have to have this sense of, I'm dancing on my feet a little bit because I'm going to be flexible to whatever is being thrown my way. If you only
Mm-hmm.
go in saying, like, I'm going to walk in, everyone's going to love me, they're going to say yes to everything that I propose, and things will turn out perfect and I'm going to be a hero, then you're setting yourself up to be really, really surprised
Right.
sometimes.
Right. And then what do you think about the way that people are communicating now, especially with the millennials and Gen Z, like they
Yeah, it's amazing because I'm an elder millennial and people complained about us for so long at the beginning of my career. And now I get to look at them and say, well, we don't look so bad anymore. But it goes back to that sense of difficult conversations, nuance, and critical thinking. I think social media has really set up this younger generation for, if someone says something I don't like, I can just unfollow them. Or if someone
Mm-hmm.
says something I don't like, I can just write some mean, scathing,
Mm-hmm.
horrible thing that cuts to their humanity in their comment section because you're behind this wall of
Right.
obscurity.
Right.
And so we create these echo chambers because the algorithm wants to feed you the things that you want to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to get back a little bit more to saying, it's not just this answer or that answer. It's not just black or white. It's not just your view and my view. There are so many gradations of things in between.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are in a safe place, whether it's a negotiation or a friendship or, you know, a fundraiser or whatever it may be, if you're in a safe place, then we should be able to explore those things together. We should be able to agree to disagree on different things. We're allowed to have differing opinions and we should feel safe to express those without being immediately, you know, canceled or thrown under the bus or whatever it may be. But I really encourage people to say, okay, this is going to be a more complicated conversation than I expected it to be, but I'm going to come to it with a whole heart and an
Mm-hmm.
open mind. I'm not going to sacrifice the things that I believe in that I really hold to be true, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
also going to listen very earnestly with someone who has a very different opinion from me. And I've left many conversations, you know, especially in this political climate, with people saying, like, I completely hear you from your position. That makes sense of why you would feel very passionately about that. And I will agree to disagree. And here's
Right.
my opinion.
Right.
And, you know, great numbers of people across the spectrum who I hold very close to my heart, and we're able to have those conversations. So I really encourage people to say, like, difference of opinion is not a bad thing. It's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
It helps you even shore up your conviction in the
Mm-hmm.
things that you believe in by being able to tango with other people's beliefs. It's really easy to say, like, this is what I believe. And then I surround myself with people who believe the same thing. And then all we can do
Yeah.
is just like talk about it together and just feel more reinforced in
Right.
our beliefs. But when you interject a differing opinion, you say, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way. Or maybe it's like, yeah, oh, that's interesting. That's how someone thinks about it, but I still believe in what I believe in.
Mm.
I think those are very, very powerful conversations, and it helps keep our society more woven together.
Yeah. And it helps you with your dance. right?
Yes.
Going with what you're saying, like if we're going to continue to stretch ourselves and be in the nuance of difficult conversation, you got to know your partner. Well, who are you
Yes.
dancing with and what moves are they going to make so that we can, yeah, be in
And
it
especially if
together.
you want to effectuate change, because
Yes.
that's another thing I really admire Gen Z, younger people today, and having this great confidence and strength in their convictions. They're coming out and just saying their opinion. They're fighting the fight. They're speaking truth to power. That is so incredibly important because I did not have
So
that
young.
when
Yeah.
I was young. I
Yeah.
did it. It took a
I did.
long time for me to say, like, well, this is what I believe. I'm just going to keep it to
Me
myself.
too.
I'm just going to
Me
hold it
too.
inside quietly and I'm going to think about it in my mind and not share it with
Yeah.
anybody. So I really, really admire this strength of
Yeah.
speaking truth to power. But
Yeah.
I also encourage people to understand that it's much easier to make change from within an organization or an institution or a paradigm or whatever it might be than it is to stand outside and throw rocks at it. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a certain amount of credibility that you have to earn. Like
Hmm.
every single person's voice deserves to be heard. Every single person deserves to be seen. But in some of these, like if you want to rise in different organizations, or if you want to be taken seriously by people who are really making decisions, it's okay to play a game to get into those, rooms or, where the room where it happens is everywhere.
Hmm.
It's Hamilton. But and not again, not to compromise what you believe in, but to understand that in order to be heard sometimes you have to build that credibility, you have to build that gravitas, and that comes from preparedness. It
Right.
comes from showing integrity in every interaction, of saying in very, very respectful ways that
Right.
I sort of disagree with how, this company is doing something, with how this school is doing something, with how this, whatever it might be, this our family is doing something,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to have those conversations in very, very collaborative ways, in very
Mm-hmm.
like heart-centered ways.
Right, right. It's not just about you just communicating what you want and what you need.
Yeah. Or
It's
holding up
about,
a sign and posting it on your social media and just
yeah,
screaming that everything is messed up in the world. There are
right.
really ways to effectuate positive change
Yes.
by,
Be the solution, be the
yes,
change,
getting
be the
into
solution.
these
Yeah,
organizations and saying like, look, this is how prepared I am. This is how professional I am. This is
yeah,
what I bring to the table. And then
yeah,
can I offer you something constructive that we could
right.
do differently, or that I'm noticing, or that makes me uncomfortable?
Mm. Wow, Jamie, I really appreciate your insights, your experiences, and could you share with us one last golden takeaway that you want the audience to remember?
Hmm. Step outside your comfort zone.
Hmm.
Because when it comes to public speaking and putting yourself out there, the reps are what matters. It really does get easier the more often you do it. But if you can't take that step outside of your comfort zone to, give a speech or do a presentation or join a nonprofit or speak on behalf of somebody, or do a podcast,
Hmm.
if you can't step outside of that, then you'll never get that experience and you'll never get that little bit of incremental comfort.
Yes,
Encourage people to just push the boundaries a little bit so that you only grow when you're
right.
stretching yourself.
Right. Bring in the passion, be prepared, bring in the passion and step outside yourself.
Certainly.
Love it. And Jamie, if do people are you open for people to reach out to you for the development opportunities? I don't know if you want to share your handle or
Sure. On
email.
LinkedIn, I'm Jaime Lee, LA, because
Okay.
no one spells my first name correctly. So I use my
No
first
way.
initial, letter J, Leela
Okay.
on LinkedIn.
That's so funny. I could see, I mean that's the way that most people spell it, how you spell it. But that's
No, most people are Jaime. I think it was one of the most popular
really
names throughout the 80s for
got
both
it.
girls and boys, actually. So
Wow.
there were 7 Jamies in my high school class.
Wow. And I noticed that you're also doing a marathon or
Triathlon.
triathlon. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, is
yeah.
that coming up?
I did my first one last summer, so I'm
Whew.
looking to start ramping up for another one, hopefully this September.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's
Wow,
been a
that's
fun
good.
experiment because I, basically for a decade was just having kids and going through that, baby stage. And so getting back to myself, it's been
Oh,
great
that's
to have a physical
great.
challenge and something that gets me out there and, helps me synthesize thoughts
That's
The
awesome.
stress is a great stress reliever and it helps you sleep better. So all important things for busy working moms.
Wow, that's amazing. That's inspiring. Maybe I should think about doing it.
Yeah,
Well,
start with a 5K. I highly recommend. I love 5Ks.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'll let you know about it.
Okay, keep me posted.
Thank you, Jamie, so much. I had a really fun time. Appreciate you. I send you continued success and positive vibes for, future work, and, really appreciate your time and your insights today.
Thank you so much
And
for having me. And likewise, such a pleasure.
thank you. And to the audience, I trust that you got your golden takeaway and that you implement them right away. And remember, anytime that you have a chance to communicate, you also have a chance to connect, to inspire, and to make a difference in this world. Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm your sister in flow. Much love. Thanks for joining the conversation today. Are you curious on how you measure up with your ability to speak in flow? Come grab my free self-assessment at https://speakinflow.com/assessment. And I'll see you on the other side.